Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Matt Wampler. Today, he's CEO and co-founder at ClearCOGS. ClearCOGS is dedicated to enhancing operational efficiency and effectiveness of restaurant owners through their advanced prescriptive AI technology. So, Matt has ran this business for a couple of years now, I believe 3 years. He's previously been president and CEO at Wampler, had an exit in 2017. So today's going to be quite a fun one. This pod, it is presented to you by podfire.com. Podfire is my podcasting agency. We can book you on podcasts, but we can also help you start your own podcast to get clients, investors, and partners. So go to podfire.com to learn how we run the show with AI. Matt, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Charles, thanks for having me, man.
Pleasure.
Yeah, look, I'm an ex-owner operator from the restaurant space. Started out in the industry in 2011 as a 20-something-year-old kid just trying to figure it out. Was fortunate enough to turn a couple Jimmy John's franchises around and now find myself on the tech side of the world doing predictive analytics for restaurants.
Quite the pivot. Tell me about Wampler Enterprises first. I see Jimmy John's gourmet sandwich franchises. How many did you have? And do most restaurant or franchise owners, do they have an exit eventually, or was that exceptional from your end?
No, I think most, the great thing about franchises is it's a pretty active market to sell your restaurant. If you're a, independent owner or operator, it's a little more difficult to sell your restaurant, but there's a lot of Jimmy John's franchises out there looking to buy more Jimmy John's. So it helps as far as the exits go. But I ended up with 5 before selling. But yeah, I took over my first one right out of college and was fortunate enough to turn it around and, just reinvest into opening up more restaurants.
Right. And why did you choose restaurants, franchises as your first business to get into? Isn't that quite hard to impose on yourself at first?
Yeah, well, first off, if I was smarter and had known what I was getting myself into, I might have been a little bit more hesitant. But no, I was the young, impulsive 20-something-year-old that saw an opportunity where, a guy had run it into the ground and needed out from the personal guarantees. And hey, I was willing to roll the dice and, found an industry I ended up loving.
How are these 7 years for you? So of course there's the love aspect, but what was challenging during these 7 years?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot more pain than there is, those Super Bowl moments when running restaurants. Look, I think the hardest part is this. You slowly start to learn that your world is not necessarily the food. My job was the people. How do I build a team? How do I inspire them? How do I get that, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid that decides they don't want to go to college to ultimately become the GM of a restaurant, their own little CEO of $1 million business? And, it's a hard transition to kind of a revelation to get to, and a hard transition to get to understand your role in it. But really fulfilling when you get it right.
Right. And your exit, was it just the right moment? What was the logic behind it? And how was it for you? Was it life changing after that, or what happened?
No, I mean, it was personal and business. So a combination between the two. Restaurants are incredibly hard. Most days it's a thankless job where you put the key in the door in the morning and you just wait for things to go wrong. And, it's late nights, it's weekends. I found myself married with young children and was just like, you know what? This season of my life is probably not the right season for me to be in the restaurant space. That was the personal side. And on the business side, we were in the, Washington, D.C. market. We'd seen minimum wage double basically. And as we were, taking those price and the wage increases, we were offsetting them with price increases, and we were watching, ticket counts fall. And I just basically said outside of, the personal side, this might be a good time to step back from this market. And I'd always intended on going back into restaurants and, found my way into it in a different way later on.
And then after that, you accepted 2 jobs before you launched ClearCOGS. How were these couple of years being employed again?
It was really only one. It was going into medical device. It's the only time I've ever worked in a corporate, atmosphere where I wasn't in charge. And let me say, it was a transition. I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. But ultimately, I like building my own companies better.
Right. And then you launched ClearCOGS. What was the thesis behind that one?
Yeah, I mean, I got into predictive analytics. I got into, tech and programming, and I was just blown away with how powerful technology had gotten today. And, what we were doing in restaurants, we were so far behind. I remember calling up my cousin and being like, "Hey, what are you doing for analytics, forecasting, and this and that?" And he's like, "Oh, Matt, I use the Excel spreadsheet you gave me. Everyone loves it." It's like, wow, things haven't changed. How do we take some of this technology that exists today and infuse it in a very people first industry like restaurants?
Right. And let's say I'm a restaurant owner and I'm using ClearCOGS. What are the features? Why would I use it? How much money am I saving?
Yeah, you talk to most restaurateurs and you really go dig into what's the real challenge in their life. Usually comes down to, the fact they don't know who's going to walk in the door. And because they don't know who's going to walk in the door each day, they make inefficient decisions around what to prep, what to order, who to staff. So, what we're here to do is to make more days go right. How can I give you the information you need ahead of time so that you make the right decisions at the beginning of the day so that you've got the right food there, you've got the right staff there, and, honestly, just to have more days go right.
Right. So I see food prep here. I see ordering as well. I see labor. I see brand visibility. Is there one feature that is used more than other features, or that you're selling ClearCogs, that you're getting more sales of ClearCogs because people are more interested in food prep, for example?
So the thing that separates us apart is our background in the restaurant industry and the fact that we understand that every restaurant is different, that there's not a one size fits all answer for all restaurants. So we take the time to go know you and your restaurant and understand what are the 10, 20, 30 decisions that you need to get right each day so that have a healthier bottom line and more days go right. And then we will work with you to basically systemize that. So every day your team wakes up and they've got those answers ready to go, and that they're not looking at dashboards and they're not sifting through reports, but instead they can focus on, the people, the hospitality, the thing that, AI and technology is not going to ever fill.
Right. And ClearCogs itself, it's for the restaurant owners, it for the team as well. Is it usable on their iPads? Like, give me a clear overview of if I would use it, yet what would be the UX and the experience?
All right, so this is where it gets almost comical. We boil things down as simple as possible. And the simplest thing we can do is to provide those 15, 20 answers you need each day in the language you want to see them. And the simplest way we can deliver that is via email. So, what it looks like is the general manager of the store or the guy who's opening the store, woman, she opens up her email in the morning and there's her daily morning briefing with all the numbers she needs. It's her playbook for success that day.
And that's it. Like it wouldn't. I thought about it as a Chat GPT, for example, that would be always available. Wouldn't that be a better UX or usability?
It's funny. So we actually developed one and we were really excited about it. Frankly, if you're a general manager running around like a chicken with your head cut off, just trying to manage the chaos, you don't want to go to a chatbot. We ran this by a bunch of restaurant people and they all basically said, wait, let me get this straight. So it's the same 15, 20 answers we need every day. And you can either just send me those answers or we can go on your chatbot and ask and it'll give us those answers. No, just send us our daily morning briefing, like so that we know each day and we don't have to go sift through and find it.
Got it. And then there's an ROI calculator. Is it like stable, the ROI that I can get from using ClearCogs, or does it vary? And
It
how are you so
varies.
confident about that ROI?
Oh, I mean, we've done in-depth studies with dozens of restaurants. I remember the first one we did, they did a double controlled study implementing it on only certain parts of their food costs in certain areas at certain times. They double controlled it. The first location in the first month, they'd save $7,000, right? Like crazy ROI on that. Um, but every restaurant's different. Typically, they have a theoretical food cost, which is what they should be achieving, their actual food costs of what they are achieving. This can range anywhere from 1 percentage point of sales to 8 percentage points of sales. We typically cut that in half, and that's just hard numbers on the food cost side. Same goes with labor, same goes with revenues. They get a little bit more wishy-washy because it's less, cut and dry. This is what you did, and this is the result because you can always understaff. But yeah, typically ROI is not a problem for our customers. They're like, we get it. We're saving a ton of money. That's all we needed. I mean, it's percentage points, not, a couple dollars here and there.
Right. And how do you get your clients nowadays?
Uh, Being on your show, I assume, is going to bring me tons of clients, right, Charles?
Thousands, millions.
No, look, it's a small industry. When you do a great job, people take notice of that. But it's very relationship driven. We tend to be, public on LinkedIn and these social media channels, as well as, being at trade shows and, account-based marketing.
Right, because I tried marketing for some restaurants before I do cold emails. Did back then, and if I would do it again, I'd probably have them start a podcast. But it was quite difficult to reach restaurant owners purely on cold email because I don't know, like you said, they're headless chicken, sort of running left and right. So I'm just curious, like, is it Facebook ads on the front end funnel if you want to acquire restaurant owners? Is it cold call? What would work best other than referrals?
Yeah, I would say this. Restaurants are incredibly hard to run. And we ask our managers today to do more than they ever have before. They don't have time, they don't have bandwidth to even do the job they have. And so if you're not addressing one of their top one, two, maybe three priorities, then you're not going to be able to reach them regardless of the medium. But I tend to think of restaurants as, when they're looking for a problem or looking for a solution, coming to companies one of two ways. They're either looking for an answer, which means you better rank well on SEO, or they hear about you from a trusted source, which means you better do really well in the social media era. Uh, that's kind of the way I look at it.
And what's your priority as a CEO this year? What do you have in your pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, we just finished raising our seed round, so it's A, don't spend all of your capital, but B, it's how do you build a reliable system for not only bringing, customers, warm leads in, but converting them? How do we take that conversion and turn them into happy customers? And how do we take those happy customers and turn them into referral engines or expansion opportunities? It's not just, one thing, it's how do you build the entire machine?
Love it. Then your co-founders, where did you met them?
I mean, right in the middle of the pandemic, online. I think it was on Angel List. Somehow got on a call with him and just loved the guy. I ended up doing some pro bono, like free advisory work for him and his first startup. And, that relationship slowly bloomed. And eventually I got to the point where it's like, hey, I think I'm going to go do something in restaurant technology. I don't know what an API is. Can you help me with this? And he probably spent 6 months trying to, kill the idea and find out why this wouldn't work. In his world, they're putting computer chips in people's brains. The idea that, hundreds of billions of dollars are lost every year in the restaurant industry just seemed foreign to him just because they're using a pen and paper. And so, yeah, it slowly morphed into what it is today.
Is it still profitable to run a restaurant? And if you would do it yourself, how would you do it? What type of restaurant? Would it be a franchise? Would you start from scratch? Any success stories of actual restaurant owners making big bucks that you've seen nowadays?
Yeah, so look, if you are not from the restaurant industry, I love a franchise. I mean, the fact that I could go in as a 21, 22-year-old kid with no background in restaurants and be given a playbook to success by Jimmy John's, where my job was to walk in every day and execute on their playbook, right? Like that is just being set up for success. I think as you become a better operator and more experienced in the industry, opening up your own restaurant where you can take some of that institutional knowledge and not be giving away a royalty, I think that that starts to make a whole lot more sense. If I were to open up one today, I love, the quasi retail mixed with a restaurant. Think your wine bar where I'm selling wine, but I also have a, retail cheese section and I'll do sandwiches at lunch where, I kind of have a mixed use case thing. I love that. I don't know what the business economics are. I would assume they're better than a typical restaurant, but yeah, something about that always spoke to me.
And what would be a great feature that you could add to ClearCOGS? You said that you worked on an AI platform, an LLM slash chat based model. What other features are you cooking?
Yeah, so right now we provide very prescriptive answers to a number of predefined questions every day. I would say that opening up the aperture so that we can answer more of those questions that our system currently can do, but the communication method is not quite there. It's where at ChatGPT, these large language models open up more of that aperture. I would also say distribution. Our job, if we do it well, you shouldn't even know that you're working with us, right? You should just know that I get my prep sheet every morning and that the numbers are right, or that when I go schedule my labor on my current labor UX, that they've now got this smart enabled labor scheduling system. We power that behind the scenes. So I would say what's next is greater capabilities, a wider aperture, and more availability behind the scenes to the interfaces you already use.
What does a day to day in your life looks like? Your father, you cook a hell of a sourdough bread. You harvest your own maple syrup or something like that. What does a day to day in your life looks like?
It's busy. Let's just leave it at that. I wake up every morning and I go take the kids to the school bus and daycare, which is a little crazy for most founders out there. I think the young kid in, New York City or San Francisco living in a studio with the whole team, I kind of live out in the suburbs with the wife and family, but I think it grounds me a ton. And then, it's meetings and problem solving. I tend to spend most of my time on the things that are going wrong in the business, how it is that we fix them. And then, if I have time at the end of the day, I have a lot of weird hobbies, woodworking, and I'll make my own maple syrup, baking. You kind of name it, but it's you got to have an outlet somewhere.
Is your maple syrup good or is it still in testing phase?
Maple syrup is fascinating. This is why I enjoyed it. I went to a retreat with my wife for our 10-year anniversary. It was like one of those weekend bed breakfast things. And they had a maple syrup making class. It was like, honey, you go to sunrise yoga. I'm going to go see what's going on with this maple syrup thing. The easiest thing ever. They literally tap maple trees and then they just get a 5-gallon bucket of like maple water. They boil it down and that's maple syrup. You don't add anything to it. So like it all tastes exactly like maple syrup.
Very interesting. I thought they added sugar to it in some shape and form.
No, it's in the maple water. That's the whole thing. Like it's just reduced maple water.
And what's your secret to good sourdough bread?
So it was another test thing out of the pandemic. So me and my girls, my wife's in healthcare, so I had my two daughters, and we were looking for things to do. Somebody said you can make sourdough starter that you just it's flour and water and just keep adding it, and it'll turn into this natural flour dough starter. And so we did it, and sure enough, like a month later, we were able to make bread, and like 6 months later, it was really good. So I would say good starter is the key.
Interesting. What are you reading nowadays? What are you learning?
That's a good question. I am not much of a reader. So I'm dyslexic, ADHD. I avoid books at all costs. I love podcasts. I love listening to people's perspectives on different things. So, it's weird, it's varied, it's whatever happens to be on my mind at the moment. I don't think there's anything specifically today that I'm focused on.
I'm quite ADHD as well, but with meditation and all that, got myself to be very focused and still read tons. I went from books to Wikipedia, and nowadays it's ChatGPT. I just have a ChatGPT that's called Biography GPT, and I just ask it for any high performers nowadays. Yesterday I was in the UFC space, right? Like Khabib, his story and all that. It's super interesting.
I love it. I use Perplexity now. I think Perplexity is
Yes.
pretty good.
Yeah, it's quite scientific, right? Perplexity, and it quotes all the sources and all that. So it's quite interesting. Any habits in your life that you nurtured to be calmer or sort of manage that ADHD? Like on my side, sports and meditation quite a lot.
Boy, it's something I could do better at. Let's just say that. I think currently just being a father. I mean, something about kids that you can't just bulldoze over and you have to slowly sit down. I mean, last night I had my daughter, we were watching March Madness, and it was like we started throwing the ball back and forth together. And it was, how can we get a new record here? But you had to take your time and not rush it. And I think there is something about kids that make you be a little bit more centered.
Yes, and they have so much energy as well. So it's a sport as well, and you can learn so much from them, right? Like they're little creative, unbiased little beings.
Yes, they are. That is for sure.
Matt, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can find us at clearcogs.com. You can find us on LinkedIn or Instagram, most of your major social channels. And if you're a restaurant, there's nothing more in life we love than talking to restaurants. So please reach out.
It was Matt Wampler and Charles Cormier.